Good evening, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this evening. We're from the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy, and we're tuning into something new that we haven't tried before, but I'm sure will be informative for everyone. We're doing our patient roundtable webinar. The webinar tonight is brought to us by a sponsorship by Live On Labs that does vitamins and supplements, and we're grateful for their support. I'll introduce myself. My name is Nancy Froman. I'm the Director of Development and Marketing for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. Pleased to be here and to join our panel. I've got my colleagues Lindsay Colbert and Tanya Zivin here as well, helping to make sure this all goes smoothly. Before we begin, I'm going to give a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, hopefully you're hearing me and hearing us. If you have trouble with the audio on your computer, you can dial in by phone. There's a dial-in instructions on your email. We are recording this webinar so that you can listen to the broadcast at another time or share it later on. And we're also going to be taking questions and providing answers later at the end of our discussion with our roundtable. I'm going to tell everyone here that we're going to keep it general, that none of us are doctors, so we can't give any specific directions or specific diagnoses. We're just sharing our stories, and hopefully that you'll find that useful as people who've tried things and find what works for them, and that's what we're trying to get to tonight. I'd like to now introduce our panelists, and I'm going to turn my camera on, and hopefully everybody else will as well. We've got four people joining us this evening. I've got Jeff Cooper, who's coming with us from Connecticut. I've got Linda Pettiot, who's from Calgary. Diva, who is joining us from Virginia, and hopefully we'll get Michael Wright, who's joining from North Carolina. And there he is. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. The format for tonight is we've come up with some questions that I'm going to pose and hopefully get some answers and responses from our four panelists. At the end of the event, we'll have questions and answers and give our audience some time to a chance to ask you all some questions, and I'll be posing them to you as well. So for the first question, just to get started, tell me your PN story. What brought you here, and what's your connection to peripheral neuropathy? And if I can start with Jeff, because he's first on my screen, that would be great.
Okay. So I was diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy this last August. So mine is a new story. I'm new to this, so I'm learning a lot. When I was diagnosed with it, and I did a little research, I actually became depressed. But then I found on Facebook a group called Peripheral Neuropathy Success Stories, and Michael Wright, who's on the line, founded that Facebook group. And Michael and that group helped me a lot, and actually helped me to get over that depression. And the other thing that helped me to get over that was I learned to become active, to take control, and that was doing research. And also a big decision was I decided to be positive. And I learned that from Michael Wright and from the Facebook group that I mentioned, that when you have peripheral neuropathy, your attitude is crucial. So that's my story.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. I think you answered a couple of the questions that will come later, but I'm sure we'll explore that. That's terrific. Well, since Jeff mentioned Michael, I'll pass the baton over to Michael to give a little introduction for himself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here and talking to everyone that I can't see, but wish I could. So I guess my story started about 7 years ago. I started getting twitching in my calf muscles, and it just about unraveled me because I didn't know what was going on. And I went to my internal medicine doctor and suggested that I might need to see a neurologist, and he told me I was depressed, that this was all depression, and I said, no, it's not depression. And so finally I had to leave him as a doctor, and I found my way to another primary care doctor who sent me to a neurologist who did the EMG and nerve conduction study, and yes, I had peripheral neuropathy. So that was my start. I went to the Mayo Clinic for a second opinion. One thing that was really important to me was to find people who could understand. And as I got on and started looking for support groups, they were all pretty much dreadful. It was all depressing stuff that I was reading. So on a whim, I decided to start Peripheral Neuropathy Success Stories. I wanted to give it a positive name. We keep the group positive. It's working. We started the group about 2.5 years ago, and we have almost 20,000 members in over 100 countries. So it's been very helpful for me for support. And thank you, Jeff, for letting me know that it's helped you, and hopefully we're helping a lot of other people as well. So that's my story, one day at a time. We just get through one day at a time.
Terrific, Michael. And I'm going to pass to Linda, who is heading another support group from our neighbors up north. And Linda, maybe you can give a little bit of your background.
Sure, thanks, Nancy. Yeah, so I have what's called hereditary peripheral neuropathy, or Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease is the original name, but as it implies, it's genetic. So I got it from my dad, who suffered his whole life because, of course, it's genetic, we're born with it, but he didn't know what it was. So he had the shooting pains, he had restless leg really bad, he has the numbing and everything. And he just didn't know until 77 when he was finally diagnosed by a neurologist. And I just happened to be there, and the neurologist said, well, why don't you hop up on the table and we'll do a couple of quick tests. So he did that, and he said, yeah, you should book an appointment with me. Okay. So that's how I kind of got diagnosed. But boy, it sure explained a whole lot of things when that finally happened. Like, I was clumsy all my life. I would fall a lot. I had shooting pains everywhere, like from my lips to my feet. I would get shooting pains. And why I couldn't wear a good shoe, like nice shoes, stuff like that. It just explained so many things. When I learned, and that was only about 5 or 6 years ago, I started searching around, as we all have, and I came across the Calgary Neuropathy Association. So I just happened to be fortunate. It's the only one in Canada, so the fact that I live in Calgary was just lucky for me. And before I knew it, I was volunteering and learning more and more and learning ways to help myself.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Diva, who's also another wonderful volunteer with many of the support groups and for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy.
I'm Diva. So I technically, just like Linda, have had PN all my life. I was always clumsy. I could never hold the basketball when it was passed to me. It would always just drop. But nothing really was significant enough, or like, enough of an issue until I fell off a horse in 2017, and then I started developing symptoms in the summer of like right after the summer of 2019, and then my diagnosis process went through to 2020, and I was diagnosed with small fiber neuropathy, autonomic neuropathy, and it explained pretty much everything. It explained low blood pressure, it explained the clumsiness. So I, ended up like seeing a lot of specialists, and I basically got the diagnosis right after graduating from college. So I had to unlearn the whole college lifestyle of like sleep is for the weak and actually start taking care of myself and sleeping and exercising and all of that. So doing all of that has really helped. And then also I've started, like Nancy said, volunteering with groups like the Foundation and the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network, which is in DC, Virginia, but also helps support groups across the country. And then I've also been writing about my experiences, which I would say is the thing that has helped me the most, because I always like expressing myself through writing, and it has really helped me kind of work through it. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. All of you have given answers to my questions, but we'll explore a little bit more, but thank you for sharing your stories. The next question, we're going to drill down a little bit more on some of the things you've already talked about, is what has, if we can take the next question, is what how have you changed your lifestyle? Have you changed diet, your exercise routine, supplements? What have you found in changing your lifestyle that has helped probably your mind as well as your body? Maybe we can start. Michael, do you want to start, and then we can pass the baton?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me is prior to peripheral neuropathy, I was traveling the world. I was going and doing so much stuff, and I really kind of had to back off a little bit. So I had to find other ways to occupy my time and be happy. And I did develop a lot of new hobbies, which I can talk about in a little bit. But I've tried every single supplement probably known to man. I've tried a lot of different things, including hypnosis. I've tried acupuncture. I've tried medical massage. You name it, and I've tried it. As far as exercise, I do try to walk. I can walk 3 or 4 miles at a time. I've got to push myself. I've also got some arthritis in my feet, so it's hard, but I do push myself through it. I've tried reflexology. It's just, I don't think I've left anything on the table. The biggest thing that's helped me is swimming. So we built a swimming pool in our backyard, and I swear I spend every spare minute out of that pool. And in the spring and summer, I'm in the water, either in the hot tub or in the pool. And it really, there's something about water that's just therapeutic. So that's really what's helped me, I would say, the most.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Diva, do you want to address what's helped you and what changes you've made that have been useful?
Sure. So for so I went to college for 5 years. And for all those 5 years, I was eating dining hall food basically. So I immediately kind of switched to home cooked food. My doctor told me to eliminate refined sugar, which was really sad, but I did. And I also went vegan and gluten-free. So now I'm pretty strict with myself, but it has really helped because my autonomic neuropathy also impacts my digestion. So it has helped just reduce the pain in general by a lot. And then as soon as my diet kind of stabilized, and that led to a lot of changes, I started kind of building up in the exercise realm. My building has yoga classes twice a week. I started going on hour-long walks every day that I don't go to yoga. So now I can walk fast, actually, like the time that it says you'll get there on Google Maps, I can actually get there in that time. And, I thought I had a tumor on my forearm and freaked out. And it turns out it was just the first time I've ever had a forearm muscle. So the exercise aspect of it has really helped me. And in terms of supplements, I was very lucky to get a doctor who kind of helps me stay on top of it. So every 6 months, we get my levels checked, or if I'm feeling fatigued, we get my levels checked before. And if there's anything that's not exactly where it should be, I will alter my supplements to fit that. And the main thing for me has been being on top of my health, just treating it like I would a class, and just studying up on everything and making sure that all my graphs look the way they're supposed to look. And just through the process, I ended up losing about 80 pounds. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Terrific. That's terrific. Yeah. Linda, can you add to what these folks have been talking?
I think Diva and I are very similar. I definitely have a problem with sugar and carbs. If I do eat them, especially late at night, then my feet will be burning and I won't be able to get to sleep, right? I've cut out all kinds of like alcohol, artificial sweeteners, caffeine. I've discovered I'm also sensitive with gluten and dairy. So if you're sensitive to anything, cutting it out is a big thing to do. I've increased the good fats because my neuropathy is myelin sheath based. That's where the problem is. And the way I understand it is that eating the good fats will help. I'm not sure how much it would help, but so I use like olive oils and grapeseed oils and stuff like that. Omegas. I take supplements with omegas. Like Michael, I do swimming. Anything that's impact, I don't do anymore, pretty much. So I try to do something every day. Swimming, do a lot of biking in the summer. I go to the gym. I have a Y membership. Sometimes I'll do an online yoga class with a group that I belong to. And weights, weights and bands when I'm trying to focus in. And one thing that I do that I don't know if a lot of people do, I think I'm strange this way. Over the years, from my chiropractor, my physiotherapist, athletic therapist, all kinds of people, I've gotten exercises that I can do. And what I try to do is just fit them in the bits. That's what I call it. So if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I'll do some calf raises or do some stretches or whatever, you know. Same with pumping gas, or if I'm standing there wasting what feels like wasting time, I will try and stretch something or move a muscle.
That's terrific. Yep. And Jeff, what about you? What do you do? What can you add?
What I do is I do a half hour of cardio and strength training every morning. And then I would say that I eat a healthy diet. I'm just changing over from a healthy diet to a Mediterranean diet, which my doctor tells me is a healthy diet and he wants me to go on. So I'm just starting that.
Terrific. Yeah, I think if I can sum up what everybody has said is, first, it helps, but to talk it over, whatever you do, talk to your doctor, take it in stages, and keep track and notice what helps you. And we even recommend to log food to see what helps and what doesn't. Thank you. To the next question, I think we'll say, so what I think I've answered some of these already. What do you, I think what's helped you the most in managing your peripheral? Oh, we're going back a question. There we go. When you have PN, what do you tell people about your peripheral neuropathy? How do you tell people about it? Diva, we'll start with Diva.
So basically, I've had to tell a lot of my friends about this, and my friends, because we're all like in our early 20s, no one has heard about this. No one knows even remotely that nerve issues could be a thing that affects someone our age. So I've come up with a bunch of analogies that help. Like, it feels like I'm wearing leggings when I'm not, or it feels like I'm wearing gloves when I'm like trying to touch my fingers together when I'm not. So that helps me communicate that like I am numb, but I can still feel like it's like there's a layer that's in the way. But apart from that, what I tell people is just that this has set limitations on me. I'm very clear about here is what my limitations are. Here's what I can and can't do. And, you know, like try to get my friends to work within those. And the best way that I've found to get around it is I'm already kind of like the planner of my friend group. So if I can continue to be the planner, I can just plan stuff that is within my limits. So that has worked out really well. And apart from that, just what I tell people is that like my system is sensitive, like something that might give someone else like a sugar rush or just like a mild stomach upset might like give me a stomach upset that lasts 3 days, or just might give me stabbing pains that last like hours instead of just like making me a little bit uncomfortable. So it's like kind of an elevated like reactivity to things that are bad for me. So that's why I need to be more careful. Now, if it's like a special occasion, like I passed a macaron place that had a flavor that I really wanted to try. I ate one single macaron and I let myself have that. And then, you know, I prepared myself for, okay, this might hurt a little, but if I decide it's worth it, then I'll give myself that one macaron.
And balancing. That's great. So, Michael, what about you? Do you find that you need to explain to the people around you?
Well, I do. One thing that I didn't say is my neuropathy is idiopathic. They don't know what caused it. They never tested me for small fiber so I don't think I've got small fiber. I don't have the burning or the tingling that people talk about. I've got just pain that shoots down my legs into my feet. So as far as sugar sensitivity, I'm not really sensitive to that. I know sugar is inflammatory and people should probably moderate their sugar intake. I eat sugar. I love dark chocolate. I have dark chocolate a lot, and I don't see any reaction from my body to that. But as far as what I tell people, neuropathic pain is not something that can be really described. You can't put it into words. If people haven't experienced nerve pain, you can try all day long to explain what it feels like, but people just can't understand what it feels like. You know, sure, you can say it burns and it tingles, but as far as my large fiber neuropathy, it just is painful. And I can't really say too much more than that, but I do try to stay busy. That's the biggest thing for me, is staying distracted. Staying amongst as many people as I can really helps me. So those are the ways that I kind of get beyond it, not thinking about it. I tell people that I just try really hard not to really focus on it. But with that said, I'm a wide open book, and I'm really happy to get people more educated, because I do think we need to build awareness. I think with 30 to 40 million people in this country with peripheral neuropathy, the awareness is very, very low, and we need to build it. So I do like sharing my story and getting people more aware. We just need to keep building awareness.
Right, right. Linda, what about you? Do you feel that you have to explain to the people around you, and how do you do that?
Well, there are some people it's just not worth my energy to try and explain it to. So, sorry. So I just don't try and explain it to them. And there's other people that you try, but you can almost tell on their faces that they just can't relate. So I do try and explain a lot of the time that, you know, it's not just about the nerve pain. Sometimes, and for some people, it comes with feelings of isolation. It comes with loss of function. Some people aren't able to work anymore, and so there's all kinds of problems with that. But actually, like Michael, I try and talk about awareness. You know, I tell people, despite the fact that there's 1 in 15, that's the number I sort of go with. I think it kind of floats depending on where you look, that have this condition. Lots of people haven't even heard the word before. And it's very frustrating for folks like us, knowing that it's so prevalent. You know, diabetes in Canada anyway is 1 in 16. Heart disease is 1 in 12. Lupus is 1 in 1,000. And people have heard of those, but they haven't heard of neuropathy or CMT like what I have. So I think where the value is for me to add is to try and raise the awareness as well. The more people know about it, the more attention it'll get. So that's what I do.
Great. Jeff, what about you? How do you explain your peripheral neuropathy to the people around you? And, you know, if you have limitations or not, how do you make people understand?
Well, I'm in the beginning of my journey, and where I am right now is I don't want to be defined by peripheral neuropathy. So what I've chosen to do is I say as little as possible, and I only bring it up when I need to bring it up. So that's helping me with my attitude. So I try to live, my life and thinking about other things.
Yeah, terrific. All right, I'm going to kind of go through the next two questions together where I said, what's helped you manage the most and what are the top 3 tips? I'm going to just say, because you all have been talking about how you're managing your peripheral neuropathy all along, what would you give your top 3 tips to somebody to say what's helped you the most? What are your 3 biggest issues and what's helped you the most? And maybe this time I'll start with Linda because I haven't had the opportunity to start with Linda on a question yet.
Okay. So sugar and carbs, those I try and cut down as much as possible. Hands down, it's what makes the biggest difference for me with the burning and keeping me up at night. The next one I would say is meditation. I try to meditate every day. I'm not always that successful, but you know, the studies that I've looked at, it can help pain relief by as much as 30% because it helps grow the brain, right? So for me, meditation, I know emotionally I can handle things better, and I can, if I'm having a shooting pain, for example, I can focus in on it, do the deep breathing, and I can actually make it go away. It took me a while to get there, but I can actually do that now. And then when I do have too many carbs at night, which I do, you know, not that often, but sometimes, I know that I've learned that if I take like a topical that has camphor and menthol in it, and you could use anything, Vicks Vapor Rub, there's all kinds of cinnamon oil or peppermint oil, but I put that on my feet, and that will quite often make it so that the burning goes away. And for me, I need my sleep. If I don't get 8 hours, I don't function very well the next day. And if that still doesn't work, I put a fan on so that the fan is blowing on my feet, and that sort of doubles the help that it gives. So yeah,
Great.
Those are my 3.
Good answers. Jeff, what about you?
Well, the first one is to be positive. So I think about what I can do, not what I can't do. I think about what I have, not what I don't have, that kind of thing. The second one is to be involved in support groups like the Peripheral Neuropathy Success Stories. And the third thing is to be self-educated on peripheral neuropathy. And part of that too is to be your own self-advocate, which is crucial, I think.
Yeah. And Diva, what about for you? How do you manage a PN? What are your top 3 tips?
So the biggest thing for me, I'd say, is that I try to spend my time and energy with the same sort of like conscious thought that I would spend my money. So like, you know, there are certain things and certain people in my life that I think are worth spending time and energy on, and certain people and things that are not worth spending time and energy on. So I basically treat my own energy as like a limited commodity, and I spend it on the things that matter to me. And that has also just helped me prioritize things in my life that, you know, like I don't, I know it's important for me to eat right, so I'm going to spend that time on cooking. I know it's important for me to exercise, so I'm going to spend my time on that instead of, let's say, watching an hour of like a TV show. So that has been big for me. Also, just being in therapy and being able to like rationalize everything, because sometimes like neuropathy and the pain that comes from it can often like lead to irrational thoughts. And just like when I found that when there's pain kind of interrupting your thought processes, it's really easy for logic to kind of go down the drain. So it's really helpful for me to like vocalize things. So very often I even figure out that like, okay, this is where I'm not making sense to myself, or there's someone else on the line who is helping me figure out, okay, this is what is not making sense. So those are two things. And then I would say self-advocacy is like my third big one. And it's self-advocacy, whether it's at work, whether it's with friends, or like I tried to be as upfront with it as possible, because this all happened during COVID. So it was mostly Zooms. And then when things started coming back in person, it was like, oh, by the way, I have walking sticks now, and just being as open as possible. And that's where writing about it comes in, which I mentioned before, which is a form of self-advocacy for me. And yeah,
Form of
so
relief as well. Yeah. Michael, what about you?
So I'm going to tell you, the number one thing for me is when we're diagnosed with neuropathy, we want answers. And so many times they're not answers. We go for second and third opinions. We get tested a million different ways. We see pain doctors and neurologists and physiatrists, and you name it, we're there. And at some point, it's about acceptance. It's acceptance that maybe we won't go back to how we were 4 or 5 years ago, but maybe we can get on with our lives and lead productive and fun lives. And for me, I think when I went through that door of acceptance, I was able to get on with my life in a positive way. And I quit the sulking and quit the searching for answers that just weren't there. And I was able to move on. So that would be number one, is just get to the point of acceptance. And then the second thing is distractions. I try really hard to stay distracted, whether I'm swimming, I paint rocks, I paint like wooden boards, just kind of like folk art type things. I also read. I read every day. I go probably through 3 novels a week. I love to read. And I like to watch Netflix. I can't help it. I just watched all of the 10 movies that were nominated for Academy Awards. You can stream all those at home. It's crazy. You don't even have to go to the movies anymore.
If we have time at the end, I'll ask you all what one you would recommend of the movies you watch. But let's get to the stuff first, and we'll get onto that stuff later.
So the third thing, so the first thing is acceptance. The second thing is stay distracted, and also as a part of that, just in communion with other people. Keep other people close to you. And then the third thing is just try to stay in motion, whether or not for you that's walking or swimming. For me, I'm in the house a lot, so I get in the car and drive up to Starbucks and get a drink. It's just staying in motion is part of being healthy and keeping your mind distracted. So those would be my 3 things.
Terrific. The next question we've got, several of you mentioned, talking to your doctors and talking to many specialists in the healthcare profession. Who do you consider part of your healthcare team, and how do you communicate with them so that they understand what you're going through and you can work together as a team with those healthcare providers? Jeff, why don't we start with you on that one, if that's okay?
Okay, I have 3. It's my primary care physician, my neurologist, and then the third one is me, my self-advocacy.
And how do you bring your self-advocacy to your primary care physician and your neurologist?
Well, whenever I go to see a doctor, before I go, I write down what I want to get out of the meeting. So it's planned.
Okay, that's great. Linda, what about you?
I also have, of course, my family doctor, but actually I don't feel like she does that much. The chiropractor. I have a chiropractor who has neurological training. There's ones that you can find across both countries. So he helps me a lot. And I have a physiatrist here in Calgary. We have a neuromuscular clinic. So I go really just once a year, and they assess me. And if I need any help with nutrition or occupational therapy or physio, that's where I can get that. Yeah.
Great. Diva, what about you?
So I actually had an orthopedic from when I fell off the horse who has kind of helped me through the process. Like I went to her initially for the pain because we all thought it was an extension of falling off the horse, and she has kind of been serving as my primary care provider a little bit, just like telling me, okay, maybe you should talk to this specialist next and that specialist next. So having her guidance has been very helpful, and I just email her. And I have a neurologist and a gynecologist over at Johns Hopkins who have both been helping me. I also have polycystic ovary syndrome, which is where the gynecologist comes in. So a big thing for me has been to make sure that each member of my team knows what's going on with the other aspects. So I talked to my gynecologist about peripheral neuropathy, even though she doesn't know all that much. And like, she asked me questions and I answered, and I was kind of educating her just as much as she was educating me about like, her department. And my neurologist has been great in terms of just like, not only in terms of like the medical stuff, but in terms of like, I'm going to Six Flags and they need a doctor's note if I'm going to be able to not stand in those lines. So I try to stay as communicative as possible. A lot of portals these days have messaging options, so I usually use that, and I've found that people tend to be pretty responsive, and I just like write down the concerns I have, and I get a response on that. And then I have kind of like supplemental members of my healthcare team, like my hand specialist, my GI, who I kind of like consult whenever there's an issue. And those I would say like, I tend to only consult when there's an issue, and the main core members are my ortho, my neuro, and my gynecologist.
Perfect. Thank you. And it sounds like you're like Jeff, self-advocating to all of them, which is
That too. Yep.
yes. And Michael, what about you?
So my neurologist actually left this earth at 36 years of age, and I haven't found a new one yet. But she had already done the workup, and she referred me to a pain doctor. So I was going to the pain doctor who was doing injections that weren't really helping, and he did prescribe a drug called Belbuca, which is a class 3 opioid. I took that for about 2 years before realizing that it really wasn't doing anything. So I stopped that. I don't take that anymore. So therefore, I really don't go to a pain doctor. I did go to a different pain doctor out of town for a spinal cord stimulator implant, which really helped a lot. There's really no need for follow-up with him. So I'm pretty much done with pain doctors. I do have a physiatrist. I'm actually going for a facet injection tomorrow in my back. He does different injections for me. I've got an orthopedic foot and ankle doctor. He's removed a couple of bone spurs from my feet. And then I go to my primary care doctor who prescribes the gabapentin that I take. And that's pretty much my healthcare team. There's really no one else at this point.
You're coordinating all of that as well. So I think
Yes.
that's the stream of this message is a lot of people, but keeping track of it yourself. The next question I have is, of course, your first answer to this question is going to be the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy, but your second answer, what resources have you found to be the most useful?
We lost Nancy.
Did you lose me? Am I
There
back?
you are. You're back.
You are.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So sorry, everybody. Did you hear my plug for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy?
Yes.
Now I'll let you plug for all the other resources that you have
That's
found
good.
helpful and useful on your journeys. Jeff, why don't you start? I know you're a researcher.
Yeah, well, even though you said the foundation, I'm going to mention that anyway. The Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy is very good. They have a great website with a lot of useful information on there. Then I mentioned before that Facebook has the group Peripheral Neuropathy Success Stories. I think is very helpful to me. And then the third and last one would be books on peripheral neuropathy. I don't think there's enough books out there, but you know, the ones that are out there are helpful. And you have to be careful which books you pick.
Yeah, we if it maybe well if anybody is interested, there's a couple that you read that were good that let us know and we can share some of those. Diva, what about you?
I would say I was lucky enough to find a really good neurologist. So I bother him a decent amount and just ask questions. And if there's anything he tells me, I ask for more explanations on like, well, yes, this is what's happening, but why is it happening? And like, you know, can we figure out like how this will evolve and all of that? And I also in addition to what everyone else said, because I use all of those, so I have not had time to read a book about that yet. I continue to read books about like fantasy. But I also have been working on a resources directory for the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network, where I've been trying to compile resources from a bunch of different places, and that has also helped me find resources like podcasts and stuff. If I want to listen to those, if I decide to have the time to listen to podcasts again. But mainly it has been that I really got lucky with my medical team. So if anyone is close enough to Baltimore and Johns Hopkins, I would recommend that. And apart from that, just resources have been like my other doctors who might not necessarily know about peripheral neuropathy, but can help me with my other issues. And like working on the PCOS has helped a lot with the neuropathy. Working on the neuropathy has helped a lot with the PCOS, and just like realizing that everything going on in my body is like pretty connected. So like I need to focus on taking care of like everything. So that goes back to like just keeping track of everything myself. I have a database like of my own medical information. It has all the dosages and everything, so that helps.
Yes, thank you. And Linda, you please plug the Neuropathy Association of Calgary, which has a wonderful website.
I fully intend to. I do have the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy on my list. But yeah, our resources, I'm always going back to our I'm sorry, it's supper time here. So yeah, I always am going back to our own resources. We have a directory of directories for all kinds of the doctors in our province, which would be like a state, right? Or in Canada, it's kind of, so we have a whole directory of the different kinds, you know, the physiatrists, the psychologists, the neurologists, all of that. But you know what? One of the biggest resources is the people in our group. You know, we have what we call CNA Connections meetings twice a month, where we get together. It's usually a smaller group, no, not usually more than 10, and we just talk about stuff. And I quite often, somebody will mention something that I just have to write down and then go look up about it later on. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
and then I try to be careful when we are, you know, planning stuff for our site, our website, that we're using credible sources. I'm sure all of you know about this, that there's different ways to tell if you're looking at a credible source on the web or not. And one starting point that people could use is Google Scholar. So don't just Google, go to Google Scholar and you'll find, you know, actual research papers and stuff like that.
That's a great tip. We had a webinar that's up on our website from our board member on how to vet scientific information. And if anybody wants to read that, it's a really good one.
I watched that one too, yeah. Good.
Okay, and Michael, I'm gonna ask you very quickly to say, besides your Facebook page, where do you get other resources?
So there is a really good organization called the American Chronic Pain Association. They've got a lot of resources on their website. It's free membership, so I encourage all of you with pain to look into that. Of course, Nancy, you've been a big resource for me along with everyone at the foundation I've connected to. And I have to say, even though you told me not to, that the group that I started, we do educational Zoom calls about every 2 to 3 weeks. We've had several neurologists, we've had pain doctors, we've had people, experts, talking about so many different things that might help our community. So those are all recorded. They're on the site. If you guys are members, you can just search on Zoom calls and you can pull those up. And it's a great resource with a lot of really valuable information from credible people out there. So we plan to continue doing those calls, and I think that would be a really good resource for people.
Yeah, I encourage anyone and everyone to go to the foundation website. We have a list of support groups, and Linda's group is there, Michael's group is there, the DC group that Diva mentioned. And the nice thing is that most of these are still virtual, so they can be accessed anywhere. Well, I'm looking at the time and I want to get a couple of questions in, but in the next one line, if each of you could give me what keeps you going, give me a motto to live by. And Michael, can you start first?
You know, my least favorite saying in the world is when people say it is what it is, because I don't believe that. I do believe it is what we make it. And I think once we accept what's going on here and we've done everything we can to help ourselves every day, we just get on there with our lives and stay positive and lead productive and fun lives.
Thank you. Linda, what about you?
I learn more, try stuff that makes sense to you, and then help somebody else do it. I've been a lifelong learner about everything my whole life, and this has just given me a project that's very personal to me to learn more about and then share with other people.
Perfect. Diva, what about you?
Just keeping in mind that it can get better, that there might be setbacks. You know, I sprained my ankle on Monday and cut my thumb on Tuesday. It's been an eventful week. But like, you know, things have been generally going uphill for me. And even if it like dips back down, the graph can keep going up.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jeff?
Live in the present and make the most of every day. And just by way of explanation, the reason I say that is because when I got the diagnosis, I was worried about the future, and I was taking imagined problems from the future and living them today. So forget about the future, make the most of every day.
Terrific. Thank you. We've gotten some questions in. I'm going to apologize to the people whose questions we won't get to, but let me ask a couple of these of you all. I'm going to direct this one to Linda. Linda, you specifically talked about being sensitive to certain things. How did you discover you were sensitive to these things?
I went actually to a naturopath who put me on an elimination diet. So for a week, I ate nothing but like white rice, I think it was. And then every 3 days introduced something else, and then something else, and then something else. And then when I introduced dairy, all of a sudden, my eye was puffy, my throat was scratchy, and my nose was stuffy. And then when I introduced wheat products or gluten, my neuropathy was a lot worse. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, great. This was a question for Diva. You mentioned getting your levels checked regularly. What do you mean by that?
Basically like vitamins and minerals, basically like vitamin B, D. I tend to kind of always be low on D. Iron, I've been anemic for a bit, so just staying on top of that. Because of the PCOS, my insulin can go up sometimes, so staying on top of like, are those insulin levels where they should be? Just like getting like a full comprehensive like blood workup, I guess way more often than the average person. So I tend to get one of those like every 6 months. And if there's anything where I'm like, I've been feeling a little tired, they'll throw in a B12 and check those levels as well. And, just
Keeping in touch with your doctor as you're taking the supplements, which I think is important.
definitely.
This is a general question, and maybe, raise your hand if you want to answer it. Are you all still driving or finding you having trouble driving? Michael, are you driving or having trouble driving?
No trouble driving at all. I love being in my car. I love going places, and yeah, so I still do drive. I haven't lost any sensation in the bottom of my feet or hands, but I would tell people that if you have lost that sensation, there are hand controls that you can get installed in your car that will make it possible for you to continue to get around and drive.
Right. Okay, great. What about Jeff, Linda, you're still driving?
Yeah, I'm still driving.
Okay.
Driving.
I've told myself, because my dad, from my dad's experience, he drove for way too long. His foot kept slipping off the brake pedal and he hit a number of things. So I've told myself, the first time my foot slips off the brake pedal, I'm checking into those hand controls.
Yeah. Okay. And Jeff, you're still driving?
Yes.
Okay. And Diva, you had a comment? You drive?
I developed PN while I was learning how to drive, so I kept getting yelled at by the instructor for slamming on the brakes, and I thought I wasn't doing it. It was just that the pressure sensation on my feet was diminished. So I just like haven't been able to learn, and I haven't invested the time into like learning with hand controls because I live in the DC area and public transport is great. So as of right now, I don't need to know how to drive. Hopefully it stays that way, or I can find the time to learn with hand controls because my feet can't really tell how hard I'm hitting anything.
Great. Can you see me now again? I seem to be flipping on and off. No. Okay. But you can hear me. So we'll keep talking and I'll figure out why you can't see me, but that's okay. There we go. That should come back. All right. Let me see if I can ask this question of Diva. I'm going to ask this question of you again. Somebody asked, how do you manage energy when you're working? And Linda, I think the rest of you are retired. Is that right? But I think, Diva, you are working. How do you manage energy when you're working?
So working remote has given me the opportunity to kind of step away and take breaks and go on a walk and then come back. So I don't usually stop working until 7, until 7, but I will take a break in the middle of the day. Going back in person, that's a little harder, but I'm trying to kind of maintain that just like step away and, mainly what I've been trying to do is keep the food intake kind of constant. Like, so I got a bunch of healthy snacks, I put them in my desk drawer, and I'm trying to just constantly be munching on stuff. For my autonomic neuropathy, I've been told to drink salt water to keep my blood pressure up. So I have 1 bottle of salt water at home, 1 bottle of salt water in the office, and I try to make sure I'm like drinking water. Sleep is a big one. If just like Linda, if I lose an hour, I'm completely off and I feel like wrong. So I prioritize sleep over everything.
One of the questions did come in about sleep. Do you, maybe show of hands, who has trouble sleeping due to pain or your symptoms, and what do you do about it? Linda, I know you mentioned the issues with sleep, and what do you do about it?
Yeah, like I said before, if my feet are burning, I'll use the camphor and menthol and a fan. If I'm really having trouble, I have some special socks that I can use sometimes. There's also, melatonin or valerian but I don't take those regularly because that can cause you problems. You don't want to get sort of dependent on those. There's guided meditations. I do that sometimes if I'm really having trouble getting to sleep. I'll put them on, you know, and just listen to them and go that way.
Great. Anyone else have anything to add to sleep? Otherwise, I'll direct a question to Jeff. You do a lot of research. I love your idea of self-advocacy. How do you get your doctors to take you seriously, to listen to you, to take into consideration? Do you have trouble with that with your current medical team, or how have you had to address that issue?
I don't think I have trouble with it. I think it's just a matter of, you know, because I go into the meetings with them prepared, I think that commands a certain amount of respect. Recently, my neurologist made a comment to me, something about, well, you're dependable. And I don't really already got that idea, but anyway, I think how you be careful how you present yourself to doctors, because if you don't present yourself well, you know, they may not take you as seriously as they would.
No, thank you. Well, we're just about out of time. I would like to thank you all for your insights, for sharing your stories. I know this is all personal. I'm going to give you 15 seconds each to give final words, and I'll start with Michael because I can see he's got a final word for us.
Oh, gosh. You know, I just preach positivity. Negativity doesn't get us anywhere. I read something yesterday in my group that I liked. It was an analogy of, like, if you think of yourself as going on a hike every day, and you're going up the mountain, you can either moan and groan and complain, or you can sing a song. And so I like that analogy a lot. I think we all just need to learn to sing a song and get through one day at a time and stay as positive as we can. And it's not always easy. I don't deny that there are days that are tough, but we still have to keep on smiling and keep on singing and getting through it one day at a time.
Perfect. Linda, what about you? Give me your 10-second wrap up for everybody.
Well, I want to apologize for all the distractions with the cat. Silly, but I'm just going to put another plug in for calgaryneuropathy.com is where you can find us. And like Michael, we have guest speakers, but not as frequent as he does. And support groups. And yeah, just trying to keep positive.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And Diva?
I would say takeaways are just like maintaining like a healthy level of confidence, because I got overconfident and I made a misstep and then I sprained my ankle. So like knowing your limitations and keeping them in mind, but also trying to cautiously push past them is something that I've learned this week from my series of unfortunate events. So that would be my takeaway. It might have been different last week, but this is what it is this week.
Diva, somebody asked where they can read your blog post. Do you have it up where people can read?
Should I send it on the chat?
You know, why don't you send it to us and we can put it in the email.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And Jeff, what is your final 10-second thoughts?
No, that's hard. I would just say, you know, I often remind myself that there's people that have it worse than us. You know, there's people that have cancer and terminal diseases and other things like that. And as long as you don't have a terminal disease every day, I'm thankful for that. And just, you know, look on the bright side, kind of like what Michael said, be positive every day. You can do it.
Thank you. Thank you all. We are just at 6:30. I want to thank everyone and sorry with the questions we couldn't get to, but I want to again thank you for coming. I have to give a thanks to our sponsor, Live On Labs, who has been very generous in their support of our organization and bringing educational materials to you all. I also need to put a plug in for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. If you like this webinar, you'll get a survey at the end. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what else you'd like to see. If you like what you do, what we do all of this with the support of donors. So we ask you to support us and go to our website for more information. And if we have any more questions, feel free to contact us. We're here for you. So other than that, I thank my panel. I thank everyone for joining us tonight, and have a good evening. Good night.
Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.